Shalom and welcome back to Israel with Aline. Today we are in the biblical city of Gezer and we are going to discover its wonders and archaeology, such as the gates and the palace of King Solomon, constructions that are over 4,000 years old. But we will also learn about the terrible side of this place with its worship of pagan gods and child sacrifices. Let's find out what's hidden beneath these stones. So if you're ready, let's get started. The biblical city of Gezer is known today as Tel Gezer. What is a tel? A tel is literally an archaeological mound. Imagine this city that was destroyed several times, either by earthquakes or by wars. The whole city that was made of stone would collapse, and the next civilization that arrives would build on top of it, and it would also be destroyed. And so the city would keep being destroyed and rebuilt, rising in level each time. It's literally like a layer cake, but instead of those layers being chocolate, these layers are made of archaeology. And that's why anywhere we stop here, we're going to find archaeological remains, everyone. Look at this. These are ceramics that could be 2,000 years old, but they could also be more than 4,000 years old. And that's why nowadays Gezer is a layer cake with more than 21 archaeological layers. And that's why it's a hill, a big mountain. So let's keep climbing. The history of Gezer begins more than 4,000 years ago in the Canaanite period, and that's why when archaeologists arrived here, this whole area was buried. Look up there at the level where the ground was when they arrived. So here there are tons and tons of earth, stones, and archaeological remains that have to be removed to rediscover the history of Gezer. And here we see the first find that was discovered, which is a Canaanite tower, again from 4,000 years ago. So let's climb it to discover more. This is the largest Canaanite tower ever found in all of Israel. Its width was 16 meters. The floor was exactly where I am standing, but from here a second part of the tower rose, which was built of mud bricks. So all of this, everyone, is just the base of this tower, and they were getting ready. Why? Because many battles and many wars happened here, including against Joshua, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Here behind me, we see the Canaanite gate, which was part of the city's protection along with the tower we just saw. And they really needed protection because this area was full of wars since Gezer was in a very strategic location. The city of Gezer was located on the Via Maris, one of the largest trade routes of the ancient world, which connected Africa, Europe, and Asia, the great powers of the ancient world like Mesopotamia to Egypt. And that's why whoever controlled Gezer controlled the Via Maris, and thus controlled a large part of the economy of the ancient world. But the end of Gezer, as we are seeing, will come in the time of Joshua, as the Bible itself tells us. They did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer, so they live among the Ephraimites to this day, but they are subject to forced labor. Joshua conquers the region, but he does not drive out the Canaanites who lived here, and so the tribe of Ephraim, the Levites, and the Canaanites end up living together. You can see that there are also families walking around here today, and where they are going, which is where we are going to, is to the underground tunnels of Gezer, one of the most advanced water systems of the ancient world. Now it's a descent of 175 steps. Can you hear that noise? Those are bats. This cave is full of bats and other animals. I can also hear pigeons in here. And now a 40-meter descent begins. It's so deep that from here we can't even see the end. But why do they make such a gigantic water system? Because here in Gezer there isn't any water spring. And that's why they need to dig a well so deep to get water. And now we're also going to have an adventure and go in here. Let's go. Music. Down here we can see the water. Imagine being a Canaanite woman 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. They had to take jars, put them on their heads, come all the way down here, fill them with water, and go back to their homes. This was mainly a role for women, and all the water in the city came from here. And now look with me at these colossal stones. There are a total of 10 stones. And imagine the strength it took to lift a stone like this and to keep it standing. It really was a great engineering project. These stones here were placed by the Canaanites. Do you believe that each of these 10 stones symbolized a pact with another Canaanite city from this region? And they also have a religious connotation. This is what the Bible calls a matzeva, stones erected to God. In the case of the patriarchs, there is the God of Israel, but in the case of the Canaanites, there are false gods, there are pagan gods that they worshipped. Let's now hear some of these biblical stories connected to this type of pillar. Jacob sets up a pillar in Bethel, where he has a dream and the vision that God shows him. We also see a passage about Moses when he sets up 12 pillars at the foot of Mount Sinai after he receives the 10 Commandments. And another example of these pillars is when Joshua sets up a stone, a pillar, when he renews his covenant with God in the city of Shechem. These pillars are called matzeva in Hebrew and represent the person's connection or the people's connection with God. But how do we know that these stones were placed by Canaanites and not by the people of Israel? First, by the dating itself, but mainly because a pagan altar was found right here next to it. And you won't believe what kinds of sacrifices were made here. Here in the excavations, many bones were found, but unfortunately, many of them were human bones, mostly from children. Here in the excavations, jars were found with human remains of children from just a few weeks old up to 6 years old. And unfortunately, this was a very common practice in the ancient world, especially here in the region for the god Moloch. And that's why I want us to turn our eyes now to the beginning of the Bible, to the book of Genesis. When God comes to Abraham and says, "Take your beloved son Isaac and take him to sacrifice on Mount Moriah," Abraham obviously isn't happy about this, but it didn't sound absurd to him for God to ask for human sacrifices, because it was believed that all the gods in this region asked for them. So when Abraham hears this, he isn't as shocked as we would be today. But look how interesting this is. God lets Abraham take Isaac to Mount Moriah, and then he stops the sacrifice and says, "Don't lay your hand on the boy, don't harm the boy." And God is clearly saying here that he doesn't want human sacrifices. So this story has two meanings. The first is Abraham proving his faith to God, but also God sending a message to Abraham and all his future descendants that he doesn't want human sacrifices like they were done here. And now let's listen together to some passages that show us the horrors committed, human sacrifices by the Canaanites, and also sometimes by the people of Israel themselves. They sacrificed their sons and daughters to demons. They shed innocent blood, the blood of their sons and daughters, whom they sacrificed to the idols of Canaan, and the land was defiled with blood. And not only did the Canaanites sacrifice their children, because the children of Judah did what was evil in my sight, says the Lord. They put their abominable idols in the temple that is called by my name. They built the high places of Topheth in the valley of Ben Hinnom to burn their sons and daughters in sacrifice, something I never commanded, nor did it ever enter my mind. It clearly shows that the people of Israel participated in these abominable practices a few times, but that God does not want and never wanted human sacrifices. But unfortunately, this was a common practice among pagans in the region. And the findings here in Gezer prove that among them, this altar. And another very impressive archaeological finding from here is this text here. The original is quite small. It was 7 by 11 centimeters, but what's written here is an agricultural calendar. Each month is written down along with the agricultural work for that month. Why is it so important? Because this calendar is 3,000 years old. It's from the time of King Solomon, and it's the oldest Hebrew document ever found. Now, why is there a replica here and not the original? Because unfortunately, the original was taken by the Turkish Ottomans. It's on display today at the Istanbul Museum and not here in Israel, but we know exactly where it was found and what is written on it, because this, everyone, is Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, but still Hebrew. And if you are enjoying our virtual tours of Israel, we are now at my favorite spot in all of Tel Gezer. This here was the entrance to the city, and this colossal gate that you are seeing was built by none other than King Solomon himself, as it is written in the Bible. The reason why Solomon imposed forced labor is this: to build the house of the Lord, his own palace, the fortress of Millo, and the wall of Jerusalem, as well as Hatzor, Megiddo, and Gezer. And this colossal gate, it has 6 side chambers, was one of King Solomon's trademarks. And why was such a large gate necessary in the city? First, it had a strategic function to protect the city, but also because this was a commercial area, a place for collecting taxes and also for holding trials. The city gate often functioned as a main square, a public place. And imagine that all of this here is 3,000 years old. And there's a good chance that King Solomon walked where I'm walking now. You may have noticed that there's a canal right here next to me. In biblical times, this canal was covered and the city's sewage passed through here. The sewage would exit here, so it had to be closed because of the smell. But this shows the engineering and technology of Israel with a sewage system already 3,000 years ago. Now I'm entering one of these side rooms of the gate, but as soon as the gate ends, you can see that there's a gigantic archaeological excavation, a colossal construction worthy of a king. We're not sure, but some archaeologists believe that there was a palace of King Solomon here. Not the palace, his main palace was in Jerusalem, but that here he built a second palace for himself. Maybe you could call it a vacation palace. Let's go see it. But why did King Solomon decide to build here in Gezer specifically? The history of Gezer is interesting because the city changed hands many times. Originally, the city was Canaanite. In the time of Joshua, it became part of the people of Israel, specifically the tribe of Ephraim. Despite that, the Canaanites continued living here. But at some point in history, the Philistines conquered the city and expelled the people of Israel from here until the time of King Solomon. The Bible tells us that King Solomon had hundreds of wives and concubines. And one of his most important wives was the daughter of the Pharaoh of Egypt. When they were going to get married, the Pharaoh wanted to give a large dowry, a great gift to King Solomon. And that's why he sent troops here to conquer the city of Gezer, killed the Canaanites, and gave the city as a gift to King Solomon, as it is written in the Bible. And here, from the ruins of what might have been King Solomon's palace, I want to say goodbye to you today. Invite you to subscribe to the channel and share this video. Big kiss, and I'll see you next time.